Well, let me talk a little more generally about this book and this project. You see that? All right. Um, it is more or less my magnum opus. I mean, I guess I've been gearing up for it for decades, really, and took a good 10 years to draft it. um, Now, in some ways, it's an awfully perverse project, tackling many, not all perhaps, but many of the major questions in philosophy, the eternal big questions, and so on. Uh, and I hope that, I believe that each chapter of the book, again, that's ontology, theory of truth, epistemology, ethics, aesthetics, and political philosophy, presents at least one substantially new theory of a central concept. Um, and I believe there are substantially new theories of knowledge here: truth, beauty, art. Right? There's maybe a somewhat new take on gender and sexual orientation as well. Um, and I hope these, what I mean by a system is perhaps not anything quite so grand as Hegel had in mind, or somebody like that, or Plato, but a set of answers to all these questions that, first of all, are compatible with a fundamental ontology of a universe of infinitely interconnected and interdependent objects, but that also that hang together in a variety of ways, which I hope are, some of which I explore, some of which I guess I leave implicit. That I hope, I hope it hangs together, but I hope it doesn't hang too perfectly together, because I think that has, uh, you know, many great philosophical systems were too damn neat. I would include Plato in that, and Hegel, um, and lose a bit of the richness, the mystery, the strangeness of reality. All right. Um, on the other hand, and it is a rather massive book, over 200,000 words if you're counting. Even the index was quite a project. But on the other hand, I hope for something like this, it is relatively readable. I hope the writing is fairly inviting. I try a lot of different modes. There's a lot of digressions. There's some pretty rigorous argumentation, but then there are many personal digressions, many historical byways that I think intended to be amusing as well as enlightening. So I hope, even though it's rather a book that seems to bristle in a way, it's just too damn big or too damn whatever. I hope that as you get into it, it's a little more fun than that. You get a little digression into Edgar Allan Poe, or this great character that I wrote a bit about, Walking Stewart, the 18th century British philosopher who walked the known world. Um, at any rate, so I hope it's a fairly pleasant thing to read. I'll give you a couple little paragraphs out of it just to give you a flavor of it. How about the very first paragraph? Um, Here's how to think about the universe. It's a skein, fabric, or better, a tangle, like rough twine tied and twisted together back and forth in snarls. It's a mess, not a grid. There are many strings, or perhaps there is a single string forming something like a fabric at a distance, consisting of myriad knots closer up. Each knot is an individual, and each individual a knot. It has a distinct form and location and physical composition. Each knot consists without remainder of string connecting it to other nodes of the skein. Each individual is itself only as and in relation. Different points of view on the skein produce different perspectives, so that at a wider angle, larger structures emerge. Nevertheless, the tangle itself does not depend from any point of view, interpretation, or description, though such things as these are actually part of the tangle. It's the skein or tangle is continually being deformed as though one person were holding it on each side and each was performing a random set of up and down and side to side motions so that knots keep coming undone, new tangles emerge, and so on. And the whole thing is fraying or disintegrating. It's true that the fabric of reality is an old saw or the merest cliche. You keep running into it everywhere from Confucius to the Greeks to the latest popularization of string theory, or what I'm calling knot theory, the theory of entanglements, universe as macrame or crochet. From one point of view, the fact that I'm harping on a cliche is a drawback. From another, it suggests that we've latched on to some fundamental insight. It would not be surprising if the true nature of the universe were surprising. But it would not be surprising if the true nature of the universe were not surprising. Maybe it's something we're fundamentally acquainted with every day. On the other hand, a lot of metaphors might be worth playing with, and you're always trying to decide what is and what is not a mere metaphor. All right, so I guess that's that's kind of a presentation of the overarching metaphor that's worked, or I don't know if it's less than that or more than that in the book, or picture that's developed through the various subdisciplines of philosophy. I might give you, just for another little bit of flavor, my little tribute to my heroes here toward the end of the intro. If I can find it, though. One thing that stitches together the various pieces of this book, though I hope and expect not perfectly, is the heroes I keep returning to, the figures in the tradition with whom, for one reason or another, I feel a deep affiliation. And I do hope that this book constitutes a kind of alternative narrative or of the history of philosophy, among other things. I mean, I do develop a kind of history of the sorts of views that I'm putting forward in various dimensions. And, so there's heroes and villains as well. But it will definitely take you on a tour of philosophy, ancient, medieval, and modern, contemporary, Greek, Asian, continental, analytic, and so on. Okay, here are some figures who have articulated or overturned my thinking over the decades, who might appear here as relevant to almost any issue and are frequently lurking somewhere in the background. Soren Kierkegaard, J.L. Austin, Blaise Pascal, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and Henry David Thoreau, Epictetus, Michel Foucault, Diogenes of Sinope, Bruno Latour, that's a later addition to my canon, Heinrich Wölfflin, G.E. Moore, Schwungze, and Rembrandt. I will let you contemplate what these figures have in common as I try to figure that out myself. There are, at any rate, strands that run through them. Individualism, affirmation of reality in various respects, intense self-reflection, and a suspicion of science and even of reason. I will express such suspicions too, while also providing heaping helpings of what I hope is rational argumentation. All right, so I guess that's the other part of the intro. I guess I just want to say, I'm proud to have made it long enough to at least try a project like this. What the hell, man? I probably wrote my first system of philosophy in high school. I still have the notes. It's pathetic, really. So wrong. And one thing I'll say about this is, in terms of tackling the big issues of philosophy, what is truth? Which I call the great white whale of philosophy, the very hardest question. Why not? Okay? I mean, at worst, writing a system of philosophy or addressing any of these big questions, which admittedly probably don't admit of decisive answers, that seems to be a relatively harmless activity at worst. All right? So why not have a go? All right. See ya. I'm gonna do the next one on my ontology. Maybe we'll be outdoors again if it's would stop showering.